this video, the middle-aged nerds discuss spoilers from books they read decades ago. Do you really need a spoiler alert? Do you really?
Hey there! I'm the Geeky Hippie. I got another channel here with my buddy Bill. We're Non-Terrestrial Half-Life. We're the new booktube show that reviews books we read ages ago. Bill, what can you tell me?
Well, we were talking and figured, let's go back to the nostalgic books that really got us into sci-fi and fantasy and take a look at them and see if they still hold up or if it's just the memory of nostalgia that made them great.
Starting with the classic fantasy series for all you nerds out there, the Dragonlance Chronicles, Book 1, Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weis. What do you remember about your first time reading this, Bill?
What I remember is, I think I was in 9th grade, school library. I was looking for a Stephen King book, and the one I wanted wasn't there. And the fantasy section was right next to it. And I saw dragons on the spine. That was enough for me. I figured, okay, I'll give this a shot. Yeah. And that's what made me pick it up. So
I remember sitting in global studies class. I was probably 8th or 9th grade. So mid-late 80s. And this kid sitting next to me, I didn't know he read books much at all. I'd never seen him reading before. And he's sitting there reading this book, and I saw the cover, and there was a dragon and a warrior and a hot lady and a guy with long mustaches and a sword. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I have to see that. Let me see that. Checked it out, found out they had it at the library, so I went and got it like the next day. And I think over the course of 2 days, I kicked out all 3 books.
I know I went through the first one in about 2 days myself. I was a little more socially active at that age, so, had to take some time out to do other stuff.
I didn't know what those words meant.
That's fair. You still don't. But that's okay.
No. So Dragonlance started with TSR. Many of you might know it's a campaign setting originally envisioned by Tracy Hickman and his wife Laura. They ended up selling it to TSR, and it became Project Overlord, the set that they were trying to expand. The idea was a broad setting. Dragons were a bigger thing in it than they'd been in other D&D settings, and it developed from there. They had hired a writer. I've never been able to find out who that writer was. And they were unhappy with what the writer was doing. So Tracy, who was leading the project, and Margaret Weis started writing it together and gave it a sample manuscript to the editor. And the editor said, yeah, you guys can do it. Go for it, write it. And kind of the rest is history, because it was the second actual novel, not choose your own adventure type book, but the second novel published for a Dungeons and Dragons setting. The first one being written by, I believe, Andre Norton, and it was called Quag Keep. I'm sorry. It was a setting in the Greyhawk setting. So there had not been any D&D books other than that before this, unless you want to count those choose modules, your own adventure. Yeah. No, I'm talking the ones Rose Estes wrote, Dungeon of Dread, Mountain of Mirrors, the Endless Quest books. There was a choose your own adventure type thing back when that was really popular. I've never played Dragonlance setting.
They just came out with a new, in fact, it came out on my birthday on December 6th. D&D released the new Dragonlance. So, you can now play as Kender is one of the races you can now play.
Nice.
So I haven't done a campaign with them yet. When I was a kid, I've loved the whole D&D idea, but I didn't know anybody who played D&D. And without the internet, it wasn't really an option for me.
Right.
I recently started playing online a lot, like 2-3 times a week. And I was amazed at how much this book feels like a D&D campaign.
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. And I think they wrote it to emulate that because they were gamers themselves.
Right.
Both of them were, all three of them, because you got to give credit Laura Hickman for her part in creating the setting.
Right. Krynn.
It's just, yeah. The closest I've come to playing Dragonlance, it was a game that should not have. Our dungeon master said, let's make epic level characters. So I said, can I play a paladin? And he said, yeah, you even get a Holy Avenger sword. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I found out we're playing Dragon Mountain or something like this, which was like a totally separate setting, not related to any of the other settings, just this big campaign module. And he had characters from all the different settings, including one of the players was playing a Kender. You don't want a Kender in the party when you're a paladin. You definitely don't want a Kender in the party when you're a paladin.
I would imagine not.
We ended up back in Waterdeep at my family estates, and the little bugger took one of the shields off the wall and was surfing down the stairs, sledding down the stairs on one of the family shields, and not much you can do without risking your paladin oaths there. But that was the closest I've ever come to Dragonlance gaming. So, but I have to fix that at some point, I think.
Well, maybe when we finish what we're doing, we can drum together a campaign. Maybe, I got the module, so.
Yeah, it's been a while. I could probably do that. So, the first time you read this book, what did you think?
From what I can remember, there were characters I loved, and there were other characters that I just did not like at all. Restilian, didn't care for him as a young kid. Did not like him at all.
I love Raistlin, but
I didn't then. I love him now.
Yeah.
But then I did not like him, and I really enjoyed his brother, Cameron.
Yeah,
absolutely. I loved him, and this time I found him a little bloodthirsty, overbearing, and condescending at times. I don't know if that's my experience. Being
a little
older.
bit of toxic masculinity in there too.
More than a little.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice.
Yeah. There were times where I'm just like, "Whoa, dude, easy." I mean,
yeah.
One of my characters for D&D is a barbarian, and I mean, she is not anywhere near as bloodthirsty. So,
man, I was surprised. I remember spoilers for a later book, but I won't be too specific. But the Dragonlance books were the first books to ever actually make me cry. So I know I must have gotten really attached to the characters. Especially
I'm thinking one in particular.
You can bleep when I say this person's name, but when Sturm dies, was the first time I ever cried in reading a book. And that really, really hit me. And I don't remember if that's at Winter Night or book 3. It's one of the two. The other two times that hit me was when Flint died.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when Tass dies and meets up with Flint in the afterlife. When that fourth book, that Dragons of Summer Flame or whatever, that one that freaking wrecked me when that happened.
For me, it was Flint. I mean,
yeah,
that whole just hiking through the mountains, and it's like, come on, man.
And see, looking at it now, Flint, I'm wondering, maybe it's the next couple books that will do it, but I'm trying to remember why I was so attached to Flint. Sturm I get, even though I'm the geeky hippie and I'm much more of a pacifist now than I ever was back then, I still really liked Sturm and what his attempts at, following the chivalric code and being honorable in a realm that didn't really have much honor anywhere. Right. But Caramon, I don't know why I liked Caramon ever. And even knowing what I know happens in the next 6 books or so with Raceland, Raceland will always be one of my favorite characters.
He honestly was my favorite character in this book. And I couldn't stand him as a younger kid. I did not like him. Like, this dude is, can't they see? This guy is evil. You know, I didn't pick up on any of the nuance.
Yeah.
So,
for me, Raceland begs those questions. Why did the writers do to Raceland what they did, having him be so decrepit when no other wizard has to go through that to be powerful?
Well, you find out why.
It's just Raceland. It's still, it has to do with Fist and Dandalus, but it's just, I guess that, writing that in, that's why, but it feels like a step that wasn't necessary to, I get it as a writer, but I always disliked it as a reader, seeing this character I have to be so physically miserable.
I enjoyed it because it made their stakes for your magic. There was a price to be paid for the power you want, and he was willing to pay it. So on that level, I get it completely, that, you can't be this powerful without paying a price, and he was willing to pay. Yeah. And I love that about it. The resolve to, okay, my body is going to do this. My eyes are going to be able to see the decay of the world is a price I'm going to have to pay if I want power.
Speaking of his eyes, there was a plot hole. You and I both know, and some of the readers might know, you can bleep this out or censor this. Fizban is Palatine.
Right.
Wouldn't you think Raceland would know, looking at him and not see, he's not seeing time decay this individual. Time's doing nothing.
That would point him out as an oddity, but not necessarily who he is.
I'm thinking, well, maybe not exactly who, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe the clues aren't there. Maybe not enough clues are there yet, but no, I think it's pretty. I think even with just Autumn Twilight, it's pretty obvious that's who Fizban is.
It is to me, but knowing the story, I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember the first time I read it being able to pick that up.
Me either. I don't remember when I figured that out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that doing what we're doing is kind of hard. There are things I'm picking up on now that I'm like, am I picking up on this because I already know what's coming? Or did I pick this up the first time and I don't necessarily remember? So there'll always be a caveat on some of my answers to the questions we have. So take that with a grain of salt. By the way, we are full spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. So just so you know.
And puns intended. Puns intended, mother.
Yeah. That's right. Shirt courtesy of M.R. Howley.
Thank you, M.R.
Yep, he is the man. Actually, I got one for you.
Okay.
Who was your favorite character then, and who is your favorite character now? I'm assuming
Tasselhoff and Tasselhoff.
Okay.
Tasselhoff and Tasselhoff. Tasselhoff. I love Tasselhoff. Yes. He inspired a lot of my characters I've played over the years. I mean, they might not be nearly as kleptomaniac as he is, or nearly as innocent and credible. He might, but a lot of them are based on him.
Right.
And I think the chaotic nature of the Kender really fits with the chaotic good with the lawful neutral tendencies of me, if that makes any sense. Those two together.
Yeah, absolutely. I get what you're saying. 100%.
But yeah, I've always figured I've been chaotic good with lawful neutral tendencies.
I think for me, there were characters I liked. Riverwind.
Yeah.
I liked him as a young man. I thought he was okay. This is a guy who was basically ousted from his own tribe for sticking to his beliefs. And, he's just trying to protect Gold Moon and everything. This read, I really found myself annoyed with his sort of inability to accept others. Annoyed me a lot more than I remember it being an issue for me as a young man.
Yeah.
So for me, that's one of the biggest clashes I have. I did not care for him, honestly.
I've found this to be a theme in a number of things that I've reviewed on YouTube in the past year. It was a theme in The Witcher. It was a theme in The Expanse. It was a theme in Rings of Power. It was a theme in Dune. And it's a theme in this series too. Racism.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything my channel has discussed, my other channel has discussed, has had racism as a theme. And now I find it in this book too. And I didn't remember it being there, but it's blatantly there. Humans don't like elves don't like humans.
Right.
The elf dwarf thing isn't so much there, but there's definitely humans and dwarves, elves hating goblins and hobgoblins and draconians, and apparently, well, not all draconians, but most draconians and all hobgoblins and goblins, all of them are evil. That's as problematic as Tolkien's orcs are all evil, and D&D's, regular D&D's orcs are all evil. That doesn't fit well with today's society, and I see that debate online all over the place. Especially from the last few years dealing with D&D and orcs. But we've got the same thing happening here.
I don't know. I think every campaign I have played in within the past year and a half that I've been playing D&D, there's been at least one half orc in every game I've played.
Yeah.
So I think some of that is kind of shifting, at least in the D&D landscape, where not all orcs are evil.
I think, they're trying to get away from it, I think. But it was really hard to, you see it here, and you're with Riverwind, he's racist against anybody who's not from Kuei Shu. I still I'm baffled by I never read any of the books about him and Gold Moon, so I don't know their culture. I have a hard time grasping the idea of a village with stone, concrete, like brick buildings, like stoneworks,
right,
in the village. And I have issues with a group of people who have villages that have stonework being called barbarians. I'm just like, that's another form of, real world racism being used to affect a cultural group within the setting.
I'll be honest. I keep getting their culture sort of fused with pretty much, the Forgotten Realms, barbarians, with Lane's barbarians.
Right. I think if I'm in a D&D setting and I think barbarian, first of all, nomadic, and, if they do have towns and cities, it would be like the ancient Mongols had, but I would not call the Mongols barbarians. The Europeans would have, and the Chinese
they called anybody
would have.
Not European,
pretty much.
So,
they were the barbarians, heathens, or whatever, or property is what they said. We would look at it as. So yeah, there seems to be a theme that happens a lot, and I realize it's even in the stuff I'm writing.
Really?
Well, it's baked into the religion, actually. The one religion is all about protecting humans from non-humans. So if you're not a human, but see, there are no non-humans on this planet for the most part. Like, there's almost no non-humans on there.
Right. See, that was one of the things that I noticed. I remember noticing reading it as a young man, was the religious aspect. But to me, it was just a plot device. I didn't look into it. I didn't think too hard about it. I was more about the adventure, that This time reading through, I'm seeing a lot more of the religious overtones. The sort of change from the old gods back to the old gods, and people trying.
I never really paid attention to the religion and except finding it weird that there were no clerics and Dragonlance, which I'm like, okay, I'm not a big cleric player anyway, so I don't think I've ever actually played a cleric, except for like outside of a video game, like playing Bard's Tale or something.
There is clerics. Yeah.
Not at first in Dragonlance, though.
Yeah, there is. When they're hiding in the bushes, just after they've escaped, they're on the road. Some clerics actually show up. Hasselhoff comes running back because he did the scouting.
Okay.
And he says to him, clerics coming. I mean, those are his exact words.
Yeah, but those were Draconians.
Still clerics.
Yeah. I mean, of course, at the story, Verminard's there already, but he's like the one, there's, I remember the books, the RPG books didn't have, it was really scant on stuff for clerics at the time, when the books first came out, but.
Well, we get our first true cleric at the end of the book, so don't forget that.
Yes. Well, good cleric of good. Well, yeah. Second true cleric of good.
Yeah, I guess Golden Moon counts.
Because the first Golden Moon was the first, and that was in the middle. And then what's his name, Elistan or something like that? Yeah,
Elistan that she healed.
Yeah, that was one of the Seekers.
Yeah, which I enjoyed that. I really did. I didn't remember it. I remembered somebody ended up that they gave the disc to who ended up being a cleric. I had forgotten who it was or the circumstances. So that was actually enjoyable. A little bit of a redemption, which I always love a little bit of redemption.
Especially when the Seekers, were you weren't sure how much they were like actually faithful and into it for that reason, or if they were into it for the power. Yeah, because there's a lot of that in fiction and I'm assuming real life history. Some people would deny how much power and politics came into play in church life, but it was there. So we've got it's just under 7 minutes for.
So, quick question before we run out of time on this session.
How
many times have you reread this book? Not necessarily the whole series, but this book.
This book this year 3 times, but that's. 4 or 5, that's no, 3rd, 4th, and 5th time reading it. I had read it twice before. Once when I was a teenager, the first time through, and then like 21, 22 years old, maybe 23, I read it read the 6. Yeah, it was 6 because I was rereading them and then read Dragons of Autumn Summer Flame. Okay. So it was around that time when Dragons of Summer Flame came out that I read them for the second time.
Because, this is the first time I'm rereading it since reading it the first time as basically a teenager. So I forgot a lot of stuff. So it was almost like a new book to me.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be a real new book for me is the next ones, the Earthsea, the Ursula Le Guin.
Yeah.
I haven't read those since my age was counted in single digits.
Yeah, I think it was 13 or 14. When I read those, I haven't read them since. So
it's literally been 40 years since I read. So we told you the name of our channel is Non-Terrestrial Half-Life. There's a story to that. I don't tell it nearly as well as somebody else. We're waiting on that video. But for now, it's an old nickname that was given to me 20 some odd years ago. It's a burden I've had to live with.
Yeah, but now you're embracing it, and that's the important part.
So, where were we at?
We were just getting into themes. We were talking about religion as one.
Racism was a heavy one.
Yeah, we got into that.
There's the obvious of good versus evil.
Well, yeah, without a doubt. You have that light and dark theme, and your lovely characters that are in the middle, which are the ones that just really make me happy now.
I'd also say friendship and found family was a major part. The
Yeah, absolutely.
companions.
A little bit of
And
betrayal.
after it, yeah, a little bit of betrayal in there. Um, there's also a lot of romantic love.
Yeah,
Tanis and Kitiara, Tanis and Lorana, Riverwind and Goldmoon. I mean, we get a wedding. Spoiler. Not every fantasy novel has a wedding in it.
true.
You know,
And most of them
I
don't
mean,
work out well when there is one.
yeah. I mean, Tolkien took a lot longer to get to his wedding.
Yeah, and George R. R.
So
Martin kind of killed everybody at one and then poisoned somebody in the other, but that's another story.
yeah. Uh, non-romantic love. Tanis and Flint was a really strong bond there. Matafleur or Flame Strike with the human children.
Yeah,
That was kind of cute. I thought it was a little strange, but you know, I think it's cute and I like it. I can live with it. You know, Red Dragon means so old and crazy. She thinks these humans are hers.
it could
Okay.
be worse.
Yeah. I mean, it almost feels like an alignment shift, you know, in a way.
Yeah,
You know,
you do sort of breach that subject where you're like, is she senile? I
I think
mean,
she is. Yeah. She,
yeah,
they pretty much say that she is, you know.
yeah, it's just
But
when you shift that into a human context, it's a lot sadder than I remember it being.
yeah,
That's
it's
sort
like
of tough.
literally, it's your grandma going out to fight the neighbor across the street who's attacking one of her grandkids. You know, and it's literally what you got here. And this is like an old decrepit lady getting
Right,
off her rocker. You know,
but dangerous. Can't forget
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, dragon. Those two syllables tends to mean danger. I did find one thing that bugged me more this time around than I think it must have bugged me before is too much of that trope of in the middle of a battle or all kinds of action going on. Hey, let's stop and talk about this.
Yeah, yeah,
And there was, I can't remember which one it was. There was like, it might have been a battle or not, but two of the characters were off to one, you know, like, and have like a 20-minute conversation. You know, and at least that's how long it took to get through in the audiobook, you know, and I'm just like, you got it. There's somebody over there attacking your friends with swords. Maybe you want to help them instead of chit-chatting with your buddy, you know, and
well,
it just,
I've noticed that's kind of a thing in the now, what's called YA market. You run into
oh,
that sort of trope a lot. And I think these books were geared for teens before there was such a thing as a YA market. There was its
yeah,
own separate thing. And parts of it do feel that way on the reread. But I think my overwhelming nostalgia for certain characters sort of made me turn a blind eye to some of the tropes. And I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm just going to roll with it. I know where
yeah.
this is going. So,
There are a lot of well-used tropes
yes.
throughout, but in some ways, it also, you know, it's like bitching about cliches in Shakespeare. I mean, if it wasn't for Shakespeare, they wouldn't be cliches.
Right.
Dragons of Autumn Twilight, the Dragonlance Chronicles, while not great literature, not even great fantasy literature, they were influential. And they
Well,
did affect what came later. And so a lot of what we see now as a trope wasn't nearly as much so in 1984.
see, now I do consider it great, but it's great.
Or cliche. Yeah.
It's great for me because it led me to look beyond into Icewind Dale and some of the other fantasies. This is what led
Okay.
me into them. So this is kind of a gateway book for me. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
ultimate, I think, would be the Xanth series, which started it all as a very
Oh.
young child. So,
Someday we might hit Xanth.
oh dear God,
I learned
the
a lot.
puns,
I learned a lot from
the
Xanth.
puns. I know.
but it's a bit of a catastrophe there, if you remember that particular pun.
Yeah.
So, I would say it's definitely, to me, a young adult type novel. The way it's written, I mean, the style of prose and the level of prose is, I don't want to say it's so negative, but it's not an advanced or style of prose. It's very plain, simple English. Doesn't dive into words that most teenagers even then wouldn't have known. At least, not that it seems to me.
Well, it didn't feel overly flowery in the language for me, which at the time was awesome, and I don't mind it now, to be honest.
Yeah.
There are times where I want an easy read where I can get invested in the characters and everything feels more like a flow. Then wait a minute, what? Let me reread that. I don't think I quite parsed all of that together, because I mean,
I get that. See, I've been making myself read or listen to a lot of authors who are known very much so for their prose, like Guy Gabriel Kay, Robin Hobb. I'd even say Ian M. Banks. I just finished his Culture series yesterday. Wow, science, epic sci-fi. So I wouldn't say epic, but some massive, major sci-fi stuff. But so I do notice sometimes when the prose is up to par, or the pros are not up to par, as Daniel Green would say.
Goblin.
He forgets, the goblin. But I mean, the writing quality to me is, this is going to sound bad. Well, it's going to be sounding bad for the person I'm comparing them to. The writing quality for me is about on par with Brandon Sanderson, with the level of prose and the style. The storytelling is nowhere near, and the characterization is nowhere near what Sanderson does. But Sanderson admits he doesn't write, and I'm not so much flowery or purpose prose, but a bit more. I like my prose to be a little bit challenging at times. Maybe a word I haven't used ever before, or maybe I've only seen a word used a couple of times, or maybe I'm seeing a word used in a new way.
I'll tell you, Warbreaker by Sanderson, actually, I enjoyed that prose.
Yes,
the prose in that novel, I absolutely love the prose. It flows in a very different way. Elantris is another one that's a bit more than even I'd say Mistborn.
Yeah, but isn't Elantris everybody's least favorite Sanderson?
Not mine. Honestly, Warbreaker is my favorite. It's the first one I read of his, and I love that book with a passion.
Okay, I started with Elantris.
Elantris, I loved it. It goes way deeper into the characters for me, so I absolutely loved Elantris.
Yeah, I've read that one 3 times now over the years.
The graphic audio version of the audiobook is pretty entertaining, so I enjoyed that. I was hoping that graphic audio had something for Dragonlance. I'm like, this would kind of be fun.
That would be neat.
But
I've done graphic audio stuff. I know all the Star Wars novels I've ever listened to are basically graphic audio. Star Wars music, lightsabers, blasters, ships, everything. And it's just like, that is fun to listen to. Sometimes it can be a bit too annoying when the music and sound effects are a little too high and loud in the engineering department there. You need to tweak it down a bit.
The Sandman they did in conjunction with Audible was beautiful.
I like it. That's what I've been listening to in addition to reading the comics. There are a few times the music's a little too loud for my tastes.
I do get some vibration at times from loud horns and deep basses, no matter what headphones I'm using. So
with conduction headset, it's kind of almost unavoidable getting vibration because it's right there. That's what it does. But sometimes if it's loud enough, it tickles. And it's a really weird spot to feel tickled because it's just what? Yeah, it's like
You can honestly say the Sandman tickled your brain.
Yeah, tickled my cheeks, man. Tickled my cheeks.
So, what did you forget about that when you came across in the book really surprised you or stood out to you? You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
To be honest, I had forgotten all about the centaurs and the unicorn, Master of the Forest or whatever, and Darken Wood. I had totally forgotten all about that. You know, I couldn't think of any other fantasy I'd read that had centaurs except for Xanth, Piers
Right.
Anthony. And I've read so little that actually had unicorns. I was really surprised when they show up in the Witcher series. Spoilers. That just, what? Unicorns in this? This is not what I was expecting.
Did you ever play the video game, that particular scene with the Witcher and Yennefer and a unicorn?
Oh yeah, I remembered. I know what you're talking about. I've never
That's what
played
I thought
the game,
you were talking about. I was like,
yeah.
oh, he's going there.
And I'm telling you though, those books are. I think of all the stuff I've read in the last couple of years, the biggest, most pleasant surprise was the Witcher books. It really was. But that's for another day. I'll be getting you to read those at some point here. Another day, another channel.
I finished the first one. My wife has finished them all, and she really wants me to finish them. So,
oh wait, I want her to come on then.
Good luck with that.
She won't do YouTube.
Oh man, she doesn't even like having her picture taken.
There are avatars that she could use.
That might be something. I'd have to look into that and get her to agree to it.
Yeah, show her the avatars here on Zoom.
She just sighed and gave me a dirty look, so probably not.
One thing stuck out at me, and this I guess you could say it ties into the theme of racism, and this is an elf attitude. The elves in Qualinesti were like, all right, we rescued you humans. You can go off now and hide down in these ravines and caves. And there should be food there for you. You go do that yourself, because we can't run away. We have to fight. We can't defend. We have to flee all the way to the other side of the continent. We have nowhere near here to flee to. What about you? Just tried sending the humans? Is it good enough for them, but not enough for you elves?
Right.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of hiding out nearby, you have to go in and take over your cousins across the country, over to Sylvanesti or whatever it was called. I think there was talk of them fleeing there. Is it just one thing's good enough for, we'll send this other species off, race as they call them, so it's literally racism in the books, because everything, it's a different race. It's good enough for another race, but no, our race can't do that. We have to do something different.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the brunt of that is Tanis, and I found a deeper appreciation for Tanis sort of being trapped in that in-between place where, he's not, the way I always thought of it, sort of, he's not nerdy enough to hang out with the nerds, but he's not jock enough to hang out with the jocks. So he's in this weird sort of middle place because, when I was that age, I was sort of in that place.
Right.
So for me, I always associated it with that. It wasn't something I wanted to look too closely at. As an adult, taking a hard look at it, I'm like, wow, he's so much better than I remember him being.
Tanis, I really like Tanis more, I think, now.
Yeah.
I see a lot of potential. See, it's a great story. The Dragonlance Chronicles is a great story. It's just I haven't gone on to Winter's Night yet for a reread on that, so I'm still going just off Autumn Twilight. It's the execution, I think, could have been better, and I'm sure if they were to write it today, with how their writing skills have evolved since 1980s, it would be a very different book.
I think so, absolutely.
it would feel, maybe I don't want to say more grown up, but feel a little bit more serious.
They have a series called the Dark Sword trilogy.
Yeah,
I love, my wife and I both read it, and we loved that entire series. And it feels like a more adult sort of version of friendships and things like that.
I never read the Deathgate Cycle by them. Let me see what I did have. There was another one that they wrote. It was a series, I think, that I read like the first book or two after. Go to the next page. Rose of the Prophet. That's the book. I never read anything further in that. That is the Rose of the Prophet. Man,
Yeah, I don't think
right.
I read that series, honestly.
It must have been The Will and the Wanderer or something, the first book in that I read. But I never read any further in that. It's the only thing outside of their Dragonlance, well, not even all their Dragonlance stuff, just outside of Dragon Rider or Dragonlance Chronicles, Legends, and then Chronicles, the fourth Chronicles book. So outside of their 7. I don't have any experience with any of the other stuff. I was going to read their space opera one. I just never got around to it. I think I might actually have to do that sometime soon. You know, not many other authors dared play with laser swords. But, you know, laser swords, that's enough to sell me on a setting.
Yeah, I read the Dark Sword trilogy. Well, started off as trilogy. I think there's 4 books, actually, because they have Legacy of the Dark Sword at the end, which is sort of later. But yeah, you might want to give that a shot, because you can tell they've grown as writers. There's a little bit more meat on the bone. So, big question. Would you recommend this to young readers now?
Probably. Depending on their age. I mean, anyone from about 10 or 12 on up, I probably would, but I know a lot of people who are reading. I was reading way more advanced than this before I was 12. So, I mean, I was reading some seriously heavy stuff by the time I was 12. I'd read Dune before the movie came out. And so I was only 11 when that movie was released. So yeah, but I would give them some heads up that, you know, some of the issues that I have looking back on it, you know, there's the guy's major reluctance, you know, to dress as the women to go rescue the children. I don't think that beat plays well today, you know. 1980s, yeah, guys having to dress up as women.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had things like, you know, what was that Tom Hanks show where they dressed up as women?
Yeah, Bosom Buddies.
Yeah, Bosom Buddies, that's what it was.
Yeah, that Scolari guy, he's going places.
Peter Scolari.
Yeah, and that Tom Hanks guy, his co-star, he's just a flash in a pan.
Oh yeah, I don't see any Oscars in his future.
No, I do know somebody who actually that was their take back in the day, or so they claim. That was their take. Yeah, because you know Scolari then went on and was on Newhart.
Yeah,
he was the husband of the ditzy blonde. That's something that wouldn't play well today. I don't know if there's ditzy blondes on TV anymore like that. I can't imagine there being them anymore.
Well, I don't know if the Daryls would go over exactly well these days either.
No.
Kind of like the Gully Dwarves. It's a bit of a character. So
yeah, and then I've been avoiding the Gully Dwarfs. The Gully Dwarf thing that just I really did find the characterization of the Gully Dwarves offensive, especially the audiobook where it really, and I like Paul Damer, but it really sounded like he was going for Poe White Southern trash from a trailer park.
I resemble that remark, sir.
But you know what I'm getting? It sounds like exactly, and it's just the way he had them talk. It wasn't so much like the right accent, but just the clipped way all their sentences, all their words would just clip like.
I did find
it's not just, and I think it's also kind of resembling the way a lot of people treat people on the spectrum.
Yeah,
you know?
that's what I was going to mention. I have a son who's on the spectrum, and I did notice some of the social cues and things that were going on there with the Gully Dwarfs. I'm like, okay. It really felt like that was there. Didn't bother me. I mean,
okay.
I was like, okay, I recognized it. I didn't find it that offensive. Is it a bit of a character? Absolutely. Is it over the top? In the audiobook, yes. Reading the book, not so much. Because my own head voice doesn't sound like that at all.
Yeah, you don't sound.
So that's where I picked up sort of the neurodivergent feel with the social awkwardness. I'm like, this is a little familiar. So in my head voice, it didn't sound that way. The audiobook, it is over the top. I'll give you that. But, yeah.
I mean, I understand why he's doing that. It's an auditory shorthand. It's an unfortunate shorthand. And that's a lot of what storytellers in different mediums use is it's like everybody throws a fit about the different accents that George Lucas had in the prequel movies. But he wasn't so much thinking of specific ethnicities, but the kind of shorthand you see in a movie, this sort of character, it doesn't matter what they look like, it's the sound. And people disagree on what some of those accents were. Some people say one's this, but no, it's this. Like Watto. I've heard everything from Greek to Jewish to Arab. And it's just, can we just say Mediterranean? But see, there's like thousands of different cultures throughout there that had part, that would come from, and it's
right.
We use, I'm not trying to say they're right, but it's something they do because we've associated a sound that we've heard a million times in movies and TV up to that point with this sort of character, for good or ill. It's like we Americans, we're pretty dumb in the fact that we think anybody with an RP accent is smart, and just because they're a Brit with an RP accent doesn't mean they're smart, but, we take them for their word, Yeah, we even take some lower class accents as being smarter than Americans, and so it's shorthand. And that's how the business works when you only have so much time to put across something. People have to find new ways to do it now, though.
Yeah, and I think things have gotten better on that front than they were, 91 when they might have done the audiobook, right around there.
I think it was more recent than that, but yeah. That brings up something else. Did you watch the animated film with Lucy Lawless?
I did.
And Kiefer Sutherland?
The 2D, 3D mixture was not good.
No, because not only, it was what, 2007 or something like that? 2006?
You know what? I'm not 100%. Let me look this up.
The CG animation could have been better. That was like some 1990s Commodore 64 CG animation. And then you had really crappy 2D. 2008. And then you had really crappy 2D animation. Also, the same year Avatar, or the year before the movie Avatar came out.
I mean, this was like Lawnmower Man levels of bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw
I've seen parts. The idea, though, that I think what the director was thinking was, let's have the dragons and the draconians be otherworldly because they're not of this world. Well, maybe maybe that's his intent with the dragons, but the Draconians, they're not natural. Let's make them unnatural. Let's make them something magical and special, so they'll look different, not just in design, but in the way their images are generated. If somebody was to do like even more recent, even just like a couple of renders more in CG to 3D with better hand-drawn art, it could actually work. Could.
Yeah, the voice acting I didn't mind so much. It was so distracting.
Kiefer Sutherland is Raceland.
Okay, I'm not sure about him as wrestling, but I loved Lucy Lawless
as Goldmoon.
As Goldmoon, yeah, I mean, she was great.
Yes, she was. So here's the thing. How would you feel if they did a live action? True to the books. Or as true to the books as can be, with updating it for modern sensibilities where needed.
I would totally be on board. I would question who's doing it, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are some people I would trust doing it. I'm talking companies. Netflix, not so much. I'd have reservations.
I'd have more faith in Netflix than Amazon right now.
See, I disagree. I definitely give Amazon a shot before Netflix.
See, I don't think Amazon would pump enough money into it. They're already pumping too much into Watt and Rings of Power.
Well, Rings of Power. I mean,
Watt and Rot.
I wish Wheel of Time was getting a little more.
HBO, I think, could do it, or like
I'd be okay with that. Yeah, absolutely. Anything like Sci-Fi or the other cable companies, not so much. I wouldn't be happy about it. I'd give it a shot, but I wouldn't be happy about it.
I don't have a casting pick, but the one thing I would want to do is not only would Tanis be half elf, half human, he'd be half one human race and ethnicity. Be an actor who's actually of mixed race as Tanis.
Yeah, I could see that completely.
So yeah, I think the actor needs to be, it would help them embody it in their headspace. Somebody who's actually coming from two different worlds.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. That sort of in between spot where you're not enough of one thing to be that group, but you're, too much to be this group, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and plenty of quality actors out there who could fit that role. Who would you go for Tasselhoff, though?
I don't know, but I was thinking somebody like Andrew Garfield as Raceland.
Ooh, that's intriguing. I like that.
He's got the build for it. He's really got the build for it, and I think he's a really good actor too. Tasselhoff, though, kind of got to be an unknown. I almost think. I can't. There's nobody known that I would want to pick. I could imagine that I can think of.
Yeah, who I would kind of like as wrestling is Michael Shannon.
Which one's he?
Did you see Bullet Train?
No, Michael Shannon, is that not Zod?
Yeah,
Man, so okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a younger group. I'm looking at a younger group of them. Where Raceland and Cameron, I think in this book, are like in their mid to late 20s tops.
Yeah, but I think having him be older and look more weathered and worn down would actually be a benefit for that character, showing the juxtaposition between his healthy brother. I think it would actually work better, and that guy has got range. I mean, he would commit fully to it, and I could see him eating that part alive.
And I want to do an actor redemption because everything we've ever seen him play was creepy. But I want, I can't think of his name. Qyburn from Game of Thrones. Anton Lesser.
Yeah.
Anton Lesser as Fizzman.
Ooh, I like that one too.
Yeah, he was in Star Wars Andor. He played one of the ISB goons. No, not goon, but officers. He was the one that was bitching them all out. He was
Yeah,
their immediate boss.
I haven't started Andor yet. It's on my list. I just haven't started it yet. Don't.
Who are you?
Don't. I got
Binge
a lot.
that shit.
Right? I got a lot on my plate.
Oh, that one is just. I'll say it right now. It's number 3 Star Wars of all Star Wars. It's my number 3 Star Wars.
I have heard great things about it,
and I'm sure you've heard terrible things about it.
Not really. I'm not
Pacing.
too much. I'm not too much into the fandom, but I don't mind a slow burn as long as it gets paid off. You know what I mean? When it doesn't, that's when I'm angry.
Oh yeah, it pays off. It pays off every 3 episodes. About every 3 episodes, because it's like 4 3-episode arcs, sort of. In the end, it's like one's a 2-episode and one's a 1 episode by itself. But yeah, it's for the most part 3-episode arcs. But it's definitely the best show I saw in 2022. Why are draconians attracted to human females? It kind of grosses me out. Cross species, and that's even a species that is technically genderless because they're all one. So do they even have? I mean, because they were harassing Tika there, and there was some other talk in here and goblins found human women attractive, and I even find it a little weird that Flint can look at a human or an elf woman and think she's attractive, and dwarven women are so very different than human and elven women.
See, for me, it's kind of like, can I look at a dog and say that dog is beautiful? Yes. Am I attracted to it? No. But I can enjoy the beauty in another species. So,
but then you got these draconians sexually harassing Tika. But, I'm just like, what?
I think that kind of goes with the evil thing, that even if they didn't meant it, it was meant to plant a seed of fear.
To mess with her head.
Yeah, I mean, it's a power dynamic thing more than it's an actual attraction thing. I could easily see that.
That would have to be it. That would have to be it.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they lack the basic equipment for any kind of function. So
we assume, yeah, because
in my head,
the way they're created, the way they were created, and lizards tend to have cloacas, anyways.
Wow, I can't believe we just had cloaca.
Both of us did.
Good God. Like, what have we become?
A couple of middle-aged nerds talking about books we read 20 years ago. And that's what the show is, folks. A couple of middle-aged guys talking about books we read years ago, and we'll be bringing on some guests. Maybe even some of you someday. But
absolutely,
the whole idea is a book we first read the first half of our life. And, well, let's just say 98 is about what we're using as the cutoff, and not to give anybody's specific age away, 97, 98. Before that, we'll cover. So
I'm 48. I don't care. I'm 48. Deal with it. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. You can put a big old up there.
Yeah, I'm going to do it every time you put your hands up.
Yeah, if you can figure out how.
Like, sorry. Right? Just for that, you can edit.
What? Well, thank you guys for joining. I had a great time. Bill, this has been fun. I'm looking forward to doing this more often.
I have enjoyed this, and this is really making me want to dive into some of my other favorites from that time period. The Icewind Dale. Really want to get back into the Drizzt Do'Urden books. So,
we won't be a weekly. We won't be a weekly episode show. We won't be in every 2 weeks. We're going to be scheduling around some personal stuff, and it'll be every 3 weeks on Sundays, Sunday afternoons. And Happy New Year.
Yeah, indeed. Happy New Year. Hope your holidays were great. hopefully we'll see you again.
Yes.